Welcome to the Alcohol Addiction Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Lee Davey. I am not an alcoholic and I refuse to be anonymous. And my guest today is Debra Joy. How's life, Debra?
Life is good. Thanks, Lee.
I've only met you twice in the virtual realm, but each time I meet you, you maybe feel peaceful and calm. You've got this aura around you, which is kind of like tranquil. I like it.
Wow, thank you. That's nice.
And I guess it wasn't always like that, right? Because reading through your blog and stuff, you're from a corporate background, I'm from a corporate background, and there was nothing tranquil about my corporate background lifestyle. Tell us a little bit about that time in your life and how did it make you feel? What was your emotions like? What was your state of mind, your paradigm? Where were you back then? Because now you're a life coach and your life is very much in your hands, and we'll get to how you got there, but let's have a little bit cast back in time and see what it was like to you during your corporate life.
Okay. I think if you had seen me from outside, if you just met me, you would think I'm really happy, I'm successful, I've got tons of energy, I'm doing everything I want to do. That wouldn't have been untrue. What you wouldn't have seen is there was this driving animal inside me that just pushed and pushed and pushed me because I never felt like I was enough. I didn't do enough. I wasn't enough. I wasn't giving enough. There was just this internal drive. And I could go back and, it's from early childhood trauma, but I didn't even recognize it. I didn't know there was another way to be. My friend always would laugh that anything worth doing is worth overdoing when it came to me, because I always thought I have to go the extra mile because if I just do enough, that's not enough. I had a really strong perfectionist streak, which is just the total killer of joy, true joy. So I was almost riding a constant high, but it wasn't sustainable.
Right.
And so when I crashed pretty hard.
And how many years ago was that?
Almost 20.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
And you said that you were driving because you didn't feel enough.
Mm-hmm.
Was that just purely within yourself? Or was when you looked around at your business, for example, did that drive come from having to keep ahead of everybody else in terms of your position, your promotion? Because you know what it's like when you're in the corporate world, you're kind of looking around you and everybody wants your job and you're thinking about how you can get to the next level so you can earn more money, get more prestige in the company, do more for the people who you respect, that type of stuff. So were your pressures external, internal, bit of both? What was it like?
I would say they were completely internal. I was really fortunate in that I first started my career working in investment management and quickly thought, just making money to make money is killing my soul. So I went on a different path to work in business that had some kind of meaning that mattered to me. So I worked in business that had an environmental focus. A friend and I started a business that delivers home groceries, organic groceries to people. This is long before internet was popular, so people would fax their orders in, if you can imagine, or they'd phone their whole order. And, it was a nightmare, but we cared about it. Then I went and worked in venture capital, which can be really cutthroat and tough, but we were investing in businesses that had a green focus and a social mission.
Yeah.
And I was teaching at a leadership school for environmental activists. And then I became the president of Canada's first socially responsible investment firm. So back to investment full circle, but in a more meaningful way. But my drive was, I personally have to save the planet. It's going to be up to me. I'm going to do it. And I have to really provide for my staff, and I have to make this a meaningful experience, and I have to beat last year's goals, and I have to sell more and produce more. So it was internal, but because it was so strong internally, I would see it reflected back to me, whether it was there or not. Someone might make a comment and I would see it as a slight of, oh, they're right, I'm not doing enough. But they might not have actually meant or said that. It was just the view I saw the whole world through.
The story you created.
Yeah.
But at that time, was you aware of this perfectionist drive and this not enoughness, or did the awareness come afterwards?
it came quite a bit afterwards. I remember reading something about perfectionism and thinking, I'm not good enough to be a perfectionist, which
Right.
is actually a great sign of perfectionism that I didn't recognize at the time. You know, I couldn't be a perfectionist. I don't do things good enough for them to be perfect. Yeah, I was completely oblivious.
Your career path reminds me of the a book called Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey that I read about, you know, using your business acumen in a capitalist way, but in a good capitalist way, so you can use the money to do better good in the world.
Yeah.
So you can wake up each morning, you have meaning and purpose in your life. When I was working in the rail industry for 20 years, and that's my background before I started trying to help people, I always had this drive that I wanted to be the CEO of the railway. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. I assume it comes from just the drive to be perfect and the drive
Yeah.
to be the best in what I'm doing at that time. And then I quit drinking and my marriage started to fall apart. So that was my crash and burn. And when that happened, I look back, I just remember going into work and all of a sudden everything looked different.
Uh,
Why am I doing this? Why am I here? Do I really enjoy it? Do the people respect me? You know, I had to report to people who had a different way of running a railway than I did.
mm-hmm.
For me, it was the people first, the customer second, money, safety. Money was somewhere else down the line, and that would come if we did all these things right. But my lords and masters were money first, which just misaligned with my values. So that point when I realized that I had to leave just to for the sake of sanity was the most difficult time of my life. Far more difficult than trying to quit alcohol or going through a divorce trumps that actually. Second most difficult time in my life was getting the strength and the faith in myself to quit a 20-year career and not know what I was going to do. Can you talk a little bit about your crash and burn, what that kind of looked like, and same kind of explain the emotions you was feeling about kind of leaving everything that you knew behind and the fear of nothing in front of you, or certainly nothing that's clear. What was
Yeah.
the time period like?
It was a lot less conscious than yours. You had this great awareness that there wasn't a fit for you. I didn't have any of that. So for years, ever since I was little, actually, I'd been dealing with some digestive issues that could never really be pinpointed to what it was. It couldn't be cured. And I kept going to look for a cure because I was in pain almost every day since I was a little kid. And in my 30s, it started to get a lot worse. So I was going to see specialists. I remember asking my specialist, can you not just take out my colon? And he said, nobody asks for that. And no, we can't, but I just want to rip it out and let me get back to work. That was what I thought. And I started to get more and more tired. I started to get aches through my body. And then it became like, even if I drank a glass of water, it felt like glass was moving through my intestines. So I eventually, at the request of my doctor and my therapist, I finally started seeing a therapist because I had this realization, I'm not sure I really like myself. I was so driven, and I wasn't unkind to people that I was aware of, but I was just so driven. I don't really like myself. So both my therapist and my doctor said, you have to take a break or you're going to kill yourself. So I had celiac, which I didn't know. So my body wasn't absorbing nutrients. I was, kind of a little emaciated, but just kept eating and eating. I'd wake in the night and eat a jar of peanut butter just to be able to fuel myself for the next day.
Right.
So when I finally took a little break from work, which was so painful for me, I was sobbing because I knew I was letting people down. I had planned things I couldn't follow through on. Even doing that, I couldn't do on my own. A friend came over and went through my day timer with me and phoned people and canceled, crossed things out. I couldn't do it. I just felt like that's who I am. So if I don't do that, I don't know who I am. When I finally stopped, I totally collapsed. There was something about continuing to go, even though it wasn't sustainable. It was like I was floating above the surface. And when I stopped, the pain hit so hard and the fatigue, it felt like someone was standing on my shoulders. And at one point I realized, I don't think I can go back to work. I tried, and I would end up lying on the floor under my desk between meetings, doubled in pain, just like, oh God, and grimacing in a meeting, and sometimes passing out in board meetings because the pain was getting so intense. So my specialist even said, you may never work again. So when I was faced with that, it was this whole identity crisis. Not I want to work to be the best. It's just, I don't know who I am if I'm not giving. What does it mean to be? That had never been a concept for me. I was not a spiritual seeker. I wasn't reading books about spirituality. I had no conscious desire to slow down or be with myself. So I was in a state of, what's next? Why is there any meaning in this life? But I didn't have a choice because I was pretty much bedridden with the pain for many months, where I would sort of crawl to the bathroom, and that would be so exhausting. I would sleep on the bathroom floor for the night. But it was terrorizing. It's not only who am I, but how will I support myself? And so that's what I was faced with. I was about 35 years old.
Was there, at that time, was there other people that were relying on you as well? Like a husband or children or anything?
I had recently divorced, so nobody was relying on me that way. I didn't have kids. And I had a lot of friends who wanted to support me, come live with us. Even my family, like, we'll build you an apartment, attached to our house and take care of you. I did not want to be a burden to anyone. So I wouldn't let the help in.
So what happened? How did you eventually, because you look like somebody, you don't look like somebody who's double up in pain right now. So
no.
What happened? Take us through slowly. I know you ended up on a life-changing trip to Mexico. How do you get from the bathroom floor to Mexico?
Yeah. Well, you probably don't need all the details. I started meditating. And actually, I had been meditating even in that totally stressed out state. I'd meditated every morning for about a year before my burnout, and for half an hour. And so I had touched moments of peace, like I wasn't living it, but I knew it existed. So I couldn't do much else, really. I just meditated a lot. And I had this moment, or whatever it was, during meditation where I really experienced not existing. And I experienced myself as the whole universe. It was like any question I had ever asked was answered without words. Anything I'd ever wondered about was gone. And all that was left was this sense that I could describe as love, but it wasn't as small as love. It was much more vast than that. And I was it, and everything was it. So when I came back to just sitting in my little apartment in pain, meditating, nothing in my life had changed. I didn't have a source of income. I was in horrible pain, but I knew that I was more than that. And that this was an experience I was having, but it was that energy that is vast love that was having the experience. So it shifted my whole perspective. So I didn't have to try to get rid of striving and focus on being. I had the sense of, oh, we are all being. This is just an experience within that beingness.
Can I ask you some questions on that?
Yes. I don't know if I can answer them.
Yeah, I don't know if you will be able to either. First one you will be able to answer. What type of meditation was you into?
Oh, I would just sit and follow my breathing and just feel sensations in my body.
Okay. And you still do that today?
I do.
What's your practice like today with the meditation?
What do you mean? Like, when do I do it?
And transcendental meditation generally is like 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon. Do you have a set routine, or do you just do it when you feel what's right for you?
I have a set routine that I don't adhere to.
Sounds like me.
So, my PR version would be one thing. No, the truth is, like, my ideal morning, I wake up, get my husband's, sort of ready to go off to work. I go for a walk, I come back and I meditate.
Right.
And I do some yoga. And I set my timer for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
When I lived in Mexico, it was very different. So now it's about 20 minutes in the morning. But what interests me more is I like to make more of life a meditation. So just before we did this call, I just sat for a little while and kind of just felt where my body was. And I burned a candle that's still burning and just said a little prayer that this be of service to whoever sees it.
I like
and,
that.
And so like if I'm eating something, I like to just take one moment where I close my eyes and I feel the food in my mouth and I feel the juices of the food and I breathe and I smell the food and just sort of be thankful that I can taste that. And that's a meditation.
That's really interesting because although I'm not in the corporate world anymore and I'm doing what I love with meaning and purpose, I still think I'm caught in that perfectionist lifestyle. I'm still going 100 miles an hour. I'm still not putting into practice everything that I'm learning, and I'm feeling the aches and pains, and tiredness and fatigue of that.
Right.
So it's inspirational to talk to you, and that will really help. Right, I'm a very rational, logical thinker, and I'm living in a house of Christians at the moment. It's the first time that I've really experienced religion and been able to talk to people about religion. And I was talking to my 17-year-old nephew the other day, who's going through some faith issues at the moment. And he asked me if I was spiritual, and I couldn't answer him. Like I had no image or experience or feeling in my mind that was spiritual. I knew that I was religious up until I was 10 because the school system that I was in dictated that that's what I should be. But then I had an event in my life at 10, which I blamed God for. And then for the next 32 years, I've never believed in God. And I guess I read, obviously with the work that I do and the path that I took after the railway, I've fallen into the spiritual crowd, if you like. My wife is very spiritual. All our friends are, but I still don't get it. So when you talk about having a feeling, experiencing not existing, for example, I don't know, I feel kind of envious that I don't understand how I can't feel that. Or like I was interviewing someone on a podcast a while back who said his epiphanal moment one day, everybody in the room he was with like turned to light, and he could just see the energy of everybody. And in that moment, he knew he never needed to drink again. It was Greg Suki who I interviewed actually. In that moment, he knew he didn't have to drink again. And I'm like, wow, how does that happen? Can you talk a little bit more about that experience?
Well, I think those experiences can be shiny baubles that distract us.
Right.
So I would think like, were you present at your daughter's birth?
Yeah.
Do you remember what that was like the moment you saw her and held her?
It was more about, that experience was more about my connection with my wife and my daughter. I can count the instances of true connection in my life probably on two hands, maybe one. But that moment when my wife really, really needed me in the deep throes of labor after 3 days, and I just held her in her hands and looked in her eyes, that was deep, true connection. It was, I don't know, I felt everything in that moment. I felt sexual, I felt intimate, I felt love, I don't know, I don't feel like that very often.
Yeah.
When Zia came out, it was all fantastic and stuff, but my abiding memory of that moment was that connection with my wife in that moment.
Yeah. To me, that's spiritual. Like the veil or the whatever it is between us kind of drops, and there's that deep connection. Like you said, it was everything. It was sexual and meaningful, and it was all of life force right there. I don't know that that's less important than the experience I had.
I remember being at Burning Man, and I was in this tent where we all had to walk around with our eyes closed and then open them and grab the nearest person we were with. And then we had to dance for that person, do an intimate dance for that person. And I closed my eyes, and I remember walking around thinking, please grab a woman, please grab a woman, please grab a woman. And I opened my eyes, and there's this guy, a real like manly guy. And I had to do this dance for him. I closed my eyes and did this dance. But again, that felt very strange, very deep, I felt like crying. I opened my eyes and he was crying. And I don't know if some of my old friends were listening to this, they'd think, what's this namby-pamby idiot on about? But maybe you're right. Yeah. You know, and I use that as an example because I didn't know this person. So I guess it shows that your spiritual moments can happen with people that you don't know as well. Not even beings. Thinking animist experiences here. Maybe I've been looking too hard for something. So I'm looking at it like a golf ball. I'm trying to think that a golf ball looks like this, but it really looks like this. I just don't know what it looks like.
Right. But you have felt it. And I think of it as it's those moments where for some reason the ego dissolves, you know, that ego that holds us in place. And this is me. And, you know, I know where I end and, you know, I know how I feel. Suddenly that's gone. And there's something bigger, you know, like that sense you felt with that guy where you don't know why, but you're crying and it's intimate. And there's this emotion. I don't want to say what emotion you felt because you felt it. But for me, there's just often like waves of love or understanding or acceptance. And they're bigger than my frame can contain. And in my feeling it, someone else is moved by it and we connect. Or no one's moved by it. It's just me. You know, I had great feelings this morning. The grass was really wet. You know, we're both in LA and it's been hot. And I thought, I'm going to walk barefoot on the grass. I haven't done that in a while. And I had this whole memory of when I was a kid and I grew up in a city, in a high rise, and there wasn't a lot of nature around. So I didn't have that access. But I was barefoot all summer on the grass. And for me, that was a sense of there's something great that's bigger than me. It was like I could connect somehow to all of nature through being barefoot on the grass. And I don't know, I think that's spiritual. I don't know what it is, but it's not just getting from point A to B with everything intact.
When I recently went through my own health issues, I sought some help from a holistic doctor in Barcelona. And one of the first things, one of the things he said in my treatment was either walk barefoot in the sand or in the grass. You know, a similar type of thing. I mean, that was partly due to my circulation issues, but I also think that there is definitely we need to get back to getting back to being more connected to nature, because the world's becoming more, the world's becoming more fake, more like I'm right now I'm in Tahunga, but I've been staying in Valencia in the suburbs, and it just, everything about it is just hollow, fake. All the houses, the $1 million houses all lined up, look perfect, but where's the sound of the children?
Right.
You know, even the lawns and the trees and the shrubbery around the suburbs is fake, because it wouldn't exist without us pouring water on it. And then I come here to my mother-in-law's in Tahunga and I say, Amma, I call her Amma, she's Korean, right? Amma, no vegetables in your garden. The garden's barren. And she turns around and says, no, we're not using the water because of the drought. What? I just come from the suburbs and they're pouring millions of liters on to make their lawn look nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think we need to get back in touch with nature, which is difficult if you don't live in nature. But on the forum, a lot of people talk about walking, either walking their dog, joining bushwalking groups, looking at the scenery, going to the river. One guy does that regularly, another one who goes biking, you know, into nature. So I think that's really important. One more thing I just wanted to say before I ask you another question, it just come to me. For people listening, I just referred to Greg Suki, the interview there. And if anyone listened to that, because I've just remembered it, you remember that Greg said he had this epiphany where he was in this AA meeting and all of a sudden everybody looked like light and energy, and he realized in that moment that there was something bigger. He had his epiphany and his moment, and he didn't have to drink again. And I was like, that didn't happen for me, Greg. I just read Alan Carr's Easy Way to Control Alcohol, and after I finished reading it, I was like, right, that's done. I'm never drinking alcohol again. And I've always since preached that Alan's process and principles and way of thinking about life is great for quitting alcohol. And Greg turned around and says, no, that was your spiritual moment. When you were reading his book, you was connecting spiritually to something bigger than what you were or what you are or what your beliefs were. It's nothing to do with the process and the principles. You just had an epiphany, and we have them in different places, guided by different people. Sometimes you're on your own. So I just thought that was really important to mention then, how quickly we can even forget that, because I just did when I said to Deborah, I don't understand what real true connection and spirituality is, and now I'm getting flooded with thoughts. So
nice.
I thought I would mention that. Yeah,
I'm gonna go listen to that podcast. He sounds great.
Greg was like, what I tend to do is every time I've interviewed someone, I then say to them, do me a favor, can you connect me with somebody who you believe would be great for my podcast? So during the Greg Suki run, it was a lot of people who were thinking about the 3 principles by Signe Banks, and they were using the thought, feeling, and mindfulness. I probably got that wrong. I have got that wrong. I'll leave it in the show notes what it is. But it was about understanding that our thoughts create our feelings, which then create our actions. And once you kind of understand the message that they're going through, that nothing else in the world, you don't look at the world in the same way. It's a really difficult practice. I find it really difficult. Again, because I'm 100 mile an hour, I guess. But so, yeah, it's definitely worth listening to. So, mumbled on a little bit then. You had your moment through meditation, started to feel like the world didn't revolve around you anymore, type of thing. But you're still sick, right? I guess.
Yeah, I was really sick. Yeah.
So how did you get over that?
It's still a process for me.
Right.
I still am very cautious about plans I make, and especially with people I don't know well, because everyone knows I may cancel at the last minute because I'm sick, right, or I'm deeply fatigued. And it's not like, oh, I'm tired, I can't go. It's like, oh my God, I can't get out of bed. Everything in my body hurts. So I'm still seeing practitioners to try to work on it, at the same time accepting this is my life. It's still a beautiful, rich life. And today when I was walking down on the grass, I was so thankful I could walk, because maybe the past 4 days in a row, I haven't had the energy to do it. So I get this feeling of like, oh, I've turned a corner. Oh, how nice. I'm like, well, I don't know that I turned a corner. I don't know that I'm going to walk tomorrow. So I just ride that wave. Yeah. And
celiac disease, for anybody listening, we had somebody in our Burning Man crew, actually, when we went, who had celiac disease. And in the opening ceremony, when everybody's like getting to know each other and the rules and stuff, there were really, really strict rules around with the way that food was compartmentalized and handled because of the celiac disease. Can you talk a little bit for people who don't know what celiac disease is?
Sure. Well, gluten, which is like a protein in wheat and rye and barley and oats, and it damages the villi in your intestines, so you actually can't absorb nutrients. And so I had it probably for years. I wasn't diagnosed till my 30s, but I was eating enough that I should have been massively overweight.
Right.
You know, like if I was going to a dinner party, I would eat before I went, because I was so afraid there wouldn't be food, like enough food to satisfy me. Or if we stayed beyond dinner, I'd have to ask the host, like, do you mind if I make something? You know, it was so embarrassing, because I was literally starving. So my body didn't get the nutrients it needs. So, you know, you don't develop really well. You're not strong. You're sort of emaciated. I looked okay because I ate tons. You know, so I looked normal. I'm 5 foot, 5'4", and I weigh about 110. So I didn't look super, super skinny, but I look slim, you know. I don't actually know, honestly, if the pain I've had is due to the celiac. Like, I was diagnosed with IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which basically is we don't really know what's going on, but somewhere between here and here, things
Something's
aren't
going
working.
on.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is pain all through different muscles. Again, they don't really have cause for it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's unresolved trauma in my body from childhood experiences that I'm also working through, doing a lot of somatic work to release and heal it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how much of your recovery was based on like pure science as such, like neurochemistry, nutrient deficiencies, that kind of stuff, and how much of it was psychological.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I went through my divorce, I had terrible back issues. And then when I read John Sarno's book, Healing Back Pain, where he talked about how our brain will create physical pain in our bodies to hide us from our emotional issues because it's more difficult to confront. It's like lesser of two evils. When I got my head around that, my back issues kind of crept away. They're back again now. But I was just wondering, how much was psychological?
I'd say it's pretty even, and I've worked at it that way, like by doing different kind of therapy modalities, but also I work with a nutritionist and I work with a chiropractor. One of the reasons for pain is I had a fall at 15 years old. I have scar tissue on my vagus nerve, all these alignment issues that I'm working on. So that fall was damaging to my body, but also my psyche. It was quite traumatic, like everything I went through after that. And I noticed, my personality changed a bit right after that fall. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So there's little things that can happen that we don't realize. They're big things to our psyche and our body, and it's all connected. So I think we have to work with the whole person and not go any faster than the slowest part of us can go. Our mind can go really quick to, I'm healed, I'm well, I'm fine, but there may be an aspect of our body or something that's not quite caught up. And so trying to bring it all along together is really important.
Yeah, it just reminded me of a business term, bottleneck. I always remember reading a book, life-changing book for me called The Goal by Eli Goldratt, which was a business book about the theory of constraints, but it was written as a novel. And he was talking about how they had this kind of like chain of kids. You had to get these kids through the woods. I don't know, he was a scoutmaster or something. You had to get the kids through the woods. And of course you had fat kids, thin kids, slow kids, fast kids. And he wanted them all in a line. And he realized that he had to identify the bottleneck. Who was the kid who was really slowing him down the most, and then create the pace around that kid. So you just reminded me of that. Now it's the same with your body, I guess, is a lot of the times we're not really approaching it. You can approaching it from a business perspective as well, and kind of like use your old corporate skills. Like, how am I going to get out of this issue? Like business sense wise, where's my bottleneck? Oh, my bottleneck is this. Because without identifying your bottleneck, Debra, I guess everything else you fix is irrelevant. You're working on the wrong stuff. Is that right?
Right. And it also creates more of a, what's the word? Like the dissociation, like I'm really identified with the part that's getting ahead and healing and going fine. And I want to be less associated with the part that's saying, hello, I'm still back here. I'd like some help.
Yeah.
And I still have those patterns in me. It's not like, oh, they're all gone. I had this epiphany and everything's beautiful. Yeah. I'll notice it, but now that's nice. Like there's an awareness, or I'll catch it. So I might be working on something and I want to push through, because that's my old way. I'm just going to push through. And if I just stop for a moment and feel my body, I realize, okay, well, my mind is ready to push through. My body's slow. What I really need is a nap. And if I give myself a nap, what I notice is I wake up and I don't have to push anymore. It's like the work I was pushing to do suddenly flows through me. And the time is there magically,
When I had my, when I was diagnosed with my hypothyroid, I was reaching about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was just in a real bad way. I just couldn't function. But there was something stopping me from sleeping, and it was just an old habit. It was a thought that you sleep at night.
Right.
Or you sleep when you've got a hangover. you don't sleep in the day otherwise. And I found it really difficult to switch off and go to sleep. And I would wake up with a real headache, like a real headache. But then after 30 minutes, it would go and I would have all this energy again. And it is more about shedding those societal norms, those rules, and just really being more intuitive and feeling your body, I guess, and your mind, and reacting to what your body needs. And that doesn't just mean giving it the right sustenance, but also the right rest, right?
Absolutely. And the right movement, and right not being what we're told is right. You know, and sometimes it's tricky because we can be so dissociated from our bodies, we can't hear them. So sometimes it's helpful to actually follow some guidelines of what might be right. But when we can slow down and really feel and hear our bodies, we can get back in touch with our more animal nature. You know, like there's nothing in nature that goes all the time. You know, the fastest animals, the strongest animals sleep most of their life.
Yes, true.
You know,
just
but
look at a lion.
Yeah, a lion. You know, a cheetah can go 70 miles an hour for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't try to do that for 8 days in a row. And acceptance has been the biggest healing tool for me. You know, just accepting this is how my body is. And this is the energy I have today. And even accepting I would love to do more some days. I'm accepting that I have a brain full of creative ideas that I can't fulfill all of them. Maybe at some point, but not now. And even accepting some days I'm pissed that I don't have more energy.
Yeah.
So just sort of letting it all be okay. And, you know, even when I work with clients, so many of my clients are overachieving entrepreneurs or CEOs, and they're successful and they're running big businesses, and they still don't feel like they're enough. You know, there's still a drive of like, I've got to do more and I've got to be better. Oh, and I've got to be balanced, by the way, too.
Yeah, that word balance. I like that one.
Yeah. And so maybe balance is like, I really go for it for these couple of weeks and then I give myself a break. You know, everybody is a little different. And so finding their way that really works with their system is important.
Yeah, that's my view on balance. It's taken a long time to get. I'm terrible, Deborah, for reading a very inspirational book and then taking the word of the author as gospel and then really applying it and running with it, thinking I own that information and that knowledge, right? Which is nonsense. It's a bad habit. And one of the things was around balance. Okay, so I've got 24 hours in a day, got to divide that up between 3 8-hour shifts. I've got to sleep for 8 hours. I've got to be with my family for 8 hours. I've got to work for 8 hours. Well, actually, no, because I have this online training course that I need to get finished, which is going to save the lives of 40 people. So I think my balance means I need to really put all my effort into that right now. And then when that's done, I am working for a long, long time, and I'm going to spend all that time with my family. And I'm going to talk to my family about that. And we're going to kind of understand and come to an agreement about the support I need, the support I can give my wife. That's balance, not the textbook balance that we read a lot about.
Right, that kind of time management. Yeah, everything is organized.
Especially for a rational, logical thinker like myself, I'm kind of driven towards, I want someone to always give me a pill, right? Like I have a problem, give me a pill. I need more time, give me a pill. How am I going to read these books? Give me a pill. Speed reading? Oh yeah, okay, let's go for it.
Right.
But then you're like, hang on a minute, I'm missing the point here. The point of reading a book is not to read as many books as you can in your lifetime. It's about really learning and experiencing the knowledge.
Right.
You know?
And I think that happens for so many of us with goals. You know, we just get so focused on the goal. And the dark side is we're living in that space of like, there's the goal and everything's going to be good and everything's going to be great, but I'm still back here. So we have this constant discontent of I'm not enough, I'm not there, I'm not there, I'm not there. And we keep moving our goals, right? We achieve that and we set the next one. And so often that goal out there where everything's going to be great keeps us from experiencing what's great right now, you know, and really like for you, like being in the enjoyment of who you're becoming and what you're learning and creating this course you're working on. When we think about, I'm going to get it done and it's going to be great. It's like, well, what about now? What's great about it now? What's the challenge I'm facing that I'm becoming a better person by solving this problem today I have with the course?
It's almost like understanding the power of goal setting, but beginning it from the starting point of acceptance. So like the foundation is acceptance. This is how I feel. This is what my life is like, and I am cool with every single aspect of that. This is where I am right now. Right now, let's set some goals rather than being stuck in the future and stuck in the past, and then setting goals and going after them 100 miles an hour. And when you get them, there'll be some kind of hollow satisfaction, which can only be filled by more goals, particularly if you've quit drinking alcohol. Because that hollow satisfaction a lot of times would be filled with, well, life still sucks. I might as well just go back and drink.
Right.
You know? Me and my wife have been watching a Netflix comedy show called Master of None.
Mm-hmm.
The main guy in there is the Indian guy. I can't remember his name. Azizi.
I think it's Azizi, yeah.
And it's hilarious.
He is so funny.
It's such a funny show because he takes real life situations that people come across all the time and injects humor in there, but there's a lesson in there too. So there's an episode just recently I watched about old people where you can look at it and you're laughing, but you can empathize with the life of someone who's old, who's just been left to kind of rot in an old people's home because we don't have time for them anymore because they're old, right? So it's great. But this guy, Azizi, the reason I'm talking about him is he recently appeared in a Cal Newport blog post where he had detached himself from the internet. He said, I get into a taxi, I put my phone in my pocket, and I think. When I get home, instead of going on the internet, I read. And the person interviewing him said, well, how do you keep in touch with the world? Oh, he said, you don't need the internet to keep in touch with the world. I'm more in touch with the world now than I ever have been without the internet. Now, I don't think it's easy will permanently be like that, right? But for the rest of us listening, it is beyond impossible. You know, the thought of not having your phone or being connected to the internet is almost impossible. But you did that, right? You went to Mexico and you shut yourself off from all digital experiences. Why did you do that? What did it feel like?
I did it because I had signed up to go to a yoga retreat in this tiny town in Mexico. And I was too sick to go, but they gave me a rain check, right? Like when you're welcome. So I thought, oh, I'm better. And I went. And I was actually too sick to do the yoga. I was really sick the whole time I was there. You have to take a boat to get to this town.
Oh, wow.
It's very, there's no roads.
Right.
It's lovely. There was I think electricity had come, but that was it. So I'm waiting on the beach for the boat to take me back home to my life. And I had this moment of feeling well. Like I had no pain in my body and I felt normal. I hadn't had that in a couple of years when this happened. And I just sat on the beach and I thought, I'm going to move here. That's it. Maybe this is a good place for me. So I prayed to whatever. I don't necessarily believe in God. I'm like, okay, life, I'm moving here. If it's not supposed to be, just shut the doors. But otherwise I'll go home and make it happen. So I did. 3 weeks later, I had moved there, given away pretty much everything I owned and moved down there. And I wasn't well. It didn't heal me, but it was so good for me because, there was no internet. The nice thing was there was no comparing myself to all the people I'd left behind. So when I was back in Vancouver, Canada, and I was sick, my life went on without me. So my friends were having parties. They were changing the world. They were working on socially important causes. I was in bed in pain. So I was so aware of what I wasn't doing. When I was in bed in pain in my little house in Mexico, that was it. It was just me, and there were some turkey vultures that would fly over my house all day. Hummingbirds would fly through it. There was a big lizard that lived in the rafters. There was no, there were no cars, so I'd hear like of people going by on the horses. It was just like the pace of nature. And I loved it. I could hear the waves crashing, just something was so soothing to my body and soul. And I realized that's actually my more authentic pace. So this drive, this push, this quickness is a pathology within me that I still live with. When I can drop out of it, it's almost like, like wild waves on the ocean, right? If you dive below them, it's calm. So it's almost like there's this frenetic energy to me at times, or, hopefully not as much now, but there used to be this frenetic energy. But within it, and I believe within all of us, there's this core of pure peace. And it was so nice to be in an environment where the outside actually matched the inside of me. And I could start to feel it. And I was walking in a sarong and barefoot and feeling my feet on the ground and what that was like, and having absolutely zero agenda. And it was shortly after 9/11. So I wasn't reliving all of those images we kept seeing on TV, and I was working in the finance industry then. That's when I was president of the investment firm. So we had friends in New York, and it was a really big deal. I was away from all of that suddenly. I didn't know if we were if the States, I wasn't living in the States, I didn't know if Bush was invading a country. I didn't know anything. I just knew when the sun would rise. And every day I noticed it rose in a slightly different position, which I would never have noticed before. And there was no street lights. There was no electricity. So if I was out somewhere, like at the market walking home, I'd notice just how full the moon was, because it would direct how much I could see my path. Like these little things in life I started to notice. How the day would smell differently, as the day went on. Like a hot day smells different than a cool evening. And it got me in touch with a type of sensuality that was always within me, but I was trying to find it more outside me. And I was like, God, just smelling the air is such a gorgeous experience. I could almost feel it all the way down into my pelvis, just slowing down had such a beautiful effect on me.
So let's try and help people. Thanks for sharing that beautiful, inspiring story for us. And people listening to this are no doubt going to be inspired, but let's see if we can help them out a little bit as well. So I'm thinking about the metaphor of you being in bed in pain in Vancouver, right? Right. So you're in bed in pain in Vancouver, but then there are people on my forum who are in pain in their mind. They might not have any physical ailments, but they are in real pain in their mind. And when I look at them all with this stupid, rational, logical mind that was given to me along my 23 chromosomes, probably very male-orientated ones, you can look at everybody, including myself and the rest of the world, and you can say, okay, working on Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meanings, way of looking at the world, we all have the right to choose how to kind of act and behave or think in any kind of situation, right? So by definition, if we are suffering pain because we're stuck in a relationship we don't like, with a job that we don't like, in a neighborhood and environment we don't like, as difficult as it seems to hear, anybody can move. We're not stuck there. Unless we live in a cage in an attic somewhere, and unfortunately in this world that happens to some people, but I don't think it does to the people who listen to this podcast, we're free to do whatever the hell we like. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that Debra's life in Mexico was economically cheaper than her life in Vancouver, Canada. And that's a guess. Am I right?
Oh my God. Yes. I spent $300 a month to live there.
Okay. So people think that change equals money. So I need money to change. No, you don't. There are places in this world that are beautiful, and we don't have to pay that much money to live there, and they're safe. So we all want security, and we all want somewhere beautiful to live. The places are out there. So what's stopping us? So what's stopping us is fear, our stories that we've created, history, past, our relationships, connection, fear of being alone, mainly a lot of fears.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I went to watch Bill Burr in the Improv in Hollywood. And I wanted to watch him. I love Bill Burr. I think he's great. I wanted to watch him. But when the time came to going, Deborah, I didn't want to go. I just wanted to stay in my house doing my work. I had a fear. I don't know what it was, but I just didn't want to move. But when I went and experienced it, I had the time of my life. And and it's the same in anything I do in my life. The fear of doing something is not the same as doing something. Yeah?
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes in life, it will turn out that, it's true. The thing that you fear, like you go for a tetanus shot, maybe you're really fearing this needle, it's going to hurt. And it does hurt. But what I'm talking about here is when I was going to quit my job, and when I was going to just give all my stuff away, and when I was going to just become homeless, and I'm homeless right now again, I had tremendous fear about those things, like really holding me back, saying, don't do that. You cannot do that. But once I did that, I felt free, alive, light. I always use the word light. I feel light, like that stress and worry and the anxiety that you create around wanting to change is not there no more. It's like you've created all that tenseness in your guts and your intestines and your,
Yeah.
So how can we help inspire people to run off to Mexico? How can we help inspire people to quit their job? How can we help inspire people to leave the guy who sat on the settee offering nothing to their lives and find someone beautiful who cares for them and makes them feel special? How can we break this down into some practical kind of tips and advice? And I know it's not easy.
Oh my God. Wow, that's a big question. I need a moment. Okay. I think those bigger steps come when you start taking smaller steps in the direction of self-love. So I think if when I'd first left work, I left on a 6-week leave and then I came back. I kept taking these leaves and realized I couldn't come back. But when I was told by the doctor the very first day, you have to leave work. If I'd said, okay, I'm going to move to Mexico and give up everything I know, and oh my God, that was too much for my system.
Yeah.
That would have been traumatizing. So I would say, what step can I take that's easy, that's in the direction of self-love? So it could be, everyone's different, but if the thing that I'm afraid of is, yours was leaving your work, right?
Well, it was more supporting my family. Yeah.
Okay. So if I leave my work, that's the draw. Like if I leave my work, something will be good. The fear is, oh God, I don't know how I support my family.
Yeah.
But I try to get people to look under the imagining, like, what do I imagine leaving my work will give me? And you start thinking about, oh, I'll feel lighter. I'll have more time to myself. Great. What will you do at that time? I'll read a book. What if you start by reading a book? Like stop doing whatever it is that's getting in the way of reading that book. Just read the book. Like look at what do I think that life is going to give me, and start doing one of those things. Just do it now and get rid of whatever it is to do the one thing. Just make one little change in your life in that direction, rather than try to change the whole world at once.
I love that advice. And I speak about this a lot on the podcast. That piece of advice you just gave me reminds me of another piece of advice I gave about alcohol. Sue, one of the members of the Strive Community Forum, for a long, long time has a difficulty kind of like quitting drinking alcohol. So she's stuck in this oscillation of not wanting to drink, but wanting to drink, not wanting to drink, but wanting to drink. And then things started to change when she started to get into Buddhism a little bit. And I remember telling her at the time, if you put a lot of your concentration and your effort into something like Buddhism, or eating really well, or exercising more, or deepening your connections with people, spending less time on the internet, if you do helping people in service, right, what are we doing here? Well, we're not focusing on alcohol, are we?
Right.
Right? We're not focusing on alcohol, but alcohol then all of a sudden, over time, with all these little small incremental changes you make, it doesn't fit in the new framework you've created for your life. The way you put it was much more beautiful and elegant. I like it. Is that you say to yourself, okay, if I'm going to quit drinking alcohol, what do I expect my life to be looking? What am I going to do with the white space that appears in my mind and in front of me tangibly when I quit alcohol? What am I going to do with it? And then when you figure out what you're going to do with it, what Deborah just said was, start doing it. and then by definition, once you start doing it, you will just outgrow alcohol. Maybe, is that the right word? I don't know, but I get it. I love that advice. Give me more. Give me more.
I think your advice was great, because so much of what we, so our problems come from focusing on ourselves, not in a self-care way, like, oh, I need to nap, I'm going to nap, but like, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Is that enough? All this worry about ourselves. And you've mentioned it a couple times now, and I have to jump in and agree with you, like, get off technology. I think that is such a killer right now of our souls. As we talk on Zoom right now, it's kind of ironic, but when I have clients going through like self-doubt, I'm going through a hard time, I'm doubting my business, I just don't feel good enough, I will give them 100% of the time the assignment of stay off social media for the next week, just completely, like, don't go on anything, and limit your email to twice a day. And 100% of them feel better about themselves. And partly it's, when we're online, we feel like there's this connection, but there isn't really. It's passive, we can make some comments, but we're seeing a very stylized version of people's lives. Everything is basically a big advertisement for how great someone's life is, or it's someone ranting about politics. And it's not a real connection. There's the potential for real connection. So I don't want to say it's not a real connection, but mostly it's not. But the other thing is, it's highly addictive because we don't know what we're going to get. And so just like nobody would sit at a slot machine if they knew they were going to lose every single time. But you don't think it's true, but nobody would sit at a slot machine for hours if they knew they were going to win every time either. It's just like, oh, I won. We'd become dull to it. It's the not knowing that keeps us addicted. Right? Am I going to win? Am I not going to win? Am I going to win? I'm not going to win. So same with when I go on Facebook. Am I going to like what I see? Am I not going to like it? When my phone pings, I don't know who it was. Is it something exciting? So it's that not knowing that keeps our brains like, and then we need more and more. But as you know, with addiction, the dopamine production isn't there as much. So we need more to get that same hit.
Yeah.
And we never get the initial hit, but we keep looking for it.
Yeah.
So when my clients get off social media and they limit themselves with email, and I find limitations to be one of the most profound ways to find real freedom. Like create some limitations, and within that, your creativity blossoms, But yeah, the technology is a real killer of joy, or can be. And so limiting that can really create the opportunity to sense yourself again.
Yeah, those limitations can also help create boundaries, respectful boundaries within your relationships as well. So I work really hard, you work really hard, everybody listening to this probably works really hard. And somewhere along the line when that happens, there'll be somebody who's not getting your attention, right? Who needs it,
right.
A child or a wife or a husband. One of the ways of kind of like making that good and is having these limitations, is having a clear defined boundary that, okay, on Fridays and Saturdays, they're your days. Or when I turn this machine off at 6 o'clock and I ain't turning it back on again. I think relationships would work. They would be less like treacle and more like water if people were able to step back a little bit and say, how can we make this work? How can we trust each other? How can we raise the respect that we've lost because you're just never here anymore and you're always letting me down? Right. So I think that's important. The other thing I just wanted to say on technology is I don't think Azizi is going to be off the internet forever. Probably got his name wrong. And like you say, me and you are now talking on Zoom to help people, inspire people to change. So I guess my 2 pennies worth on the technology angle is treat it with respect and use it sensibly and mindfully, particularly with social media. So if you're going on Facebook every day or just mindlessly waking up in the morning, going through Instagram to see who looks hot today, or to look at some random quote or to see what someone's getting up to in life, that's not really helping you, right? If you're just going to take selfies of yourself all day and post them on Facebook for no other apparent reason that you can think of other than following the tribe or wanting people to give you some external praise because you're not able to generate it internally, then that's not good for you. But if you're like a member of Strive Community Forum and you've gone onto that forum because you're fed up with the fakeness of the world and you want to really start meeting like-minded people and developing deep connections with people who understand your addiction and stuff, knock yourself out, right? As long as it's healthy for you. Like Michelle, who's Strive Community Forum member, she used Strive Community Forum to get herself sober. And then at some point throughout that journey, she said to herself, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with everybody else's pain and suffering. I don't know how to help people who don't know how to help themselves when the answers are so clearly do the bloody work, or don't have drink in the house, or tell your bloody wife. Or she had to take a step back, and she's been away from the community for a couple of months, and now she's coming back in because
that's so cool.
She's been able to settle herself, grow, and now she's ready to give back to the community because she's got a better, stronger toolkit. So that's my 2 pennies worth on technology.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I feel like I misspoke when I said it's not a real connection. There are opportunities for deep connection on technology. And I think it's important you check regularly when on your phone or online, how am I feeling right now? Am I feeling anything? Or am I just striping and liking and, can I feel myself? I've reconnected with elementary school friends, and we talk on Facebook, and I love seeing their kids and seeing what they're up to, and it's meaningful for me. I don't do it often, but when I pop in, I love it. So yeah, there's ways to use it. It's just to notice, am I on it? Have I lost myself? Am I kind of pissed by my family when they want to take me away from this?
There's a great, I say this regularly on the podcast, and I don't make any apologies for repeating myself because I think the lessons are really important. But when I go to Agape Spiritual Church and listen to Michael Beckwith doing his sermons, he always says, you don't have to be interested with everything that's going on in the world. You just need to be aware of it. You don't have to be interested in North Korea and America wanting to go to war, right? You just need to know it's there. You don't have to be interested in hurricanes and Nazi revolutions in Charlottesville. You just need to know it's there, or you don't even need to know it's there. You need to pick and choose your battles. You need to pick and choose what you're going to apply attention to and say, what am I benefiting out of this? And me and Liza had a conversation the other day about the family that we're staying with. Their parents have some really strict rules around their use of technology. And as a parent myself, who allowed my child, who's 16, to do what the hell he liked with his technology to a certain degree, that way of parenting contrasts to my style of parenting in the way that I don't like being told what to do. And I don't like limitations being imposed on me, right? Whether they're good for me or not, I just don't like it. So that puts me in a quandary because, of course, I have an 11-month-old daughter. So we don't let her touch mobile phones. We don't have a television in the house. She doesn't watch it. Very, very, very rarely has she ever looked at a computer screen. Very, very rarely, right? But we also need to be aware that the pace of technology is such that at some point in the future, our world is going to be very, very different. And as a result of that, we have to weigh up the pluses and minuses of raising our daughter on a little island in Mexico or preparing her for the world that is going to be at large. So a good example is, Deborah, when it comes to career choice, it's probably a good idea for my son or my daughter to maybe think about, well, okay, what are the jobs that are going to be around that artificial intelligence isn't going to be doing when I'm older, type of thing. So I guess what I'm saying is be respectful, mindful about what's going on in the world in terms of technology, and really kind of like use it very wisely, like anything in the world. Nuclear energy can be used wisely, or it can be used to just utter destruction. Artificial intelligence can be used to make us immortal. Well, not immortal, to remove our problems with aging, but we can still get run over by a truck. But it can also arm someone like Vladimir Putin with enough mass drones to just destroy the world, right? So, yeah, let's just be a bit sensible about it, have breaks from it, and some real good boundaries, you know?
And I don't even know how much we have to be aware of. I feel sort of embarrassed saying that, but I'm not really sure what artificial intelligence means. I hear it all the time, but I don't have any interest in knowing it. It doesn't give me joy to think about it and think I want to learn about that. When something inspires me, I do go learn.
Yeah.
And I don't watch the news. I don't scroll through it on social media, but somehow news hits me. Like I heard about Harvey. Harvey had actually happened by the time I heard about it, believe it or not.
Same here.
But when I heard about, like, oh, I'm going to go donate money to a couple of organizations. So I still was able to act. I've not seen one image, so I'm not traumatized by it. There was a study that showed that people who watched 4 hours of the Boston Marathon bombing were more traumatized than people who'd been at it.
Right.
Because you're sitting in your place, your body's not moving, but you're just watching these images, and everything in your nervous system goes, oh my God, run, fight, get out. But you're just sitting there, like you're holding yourself down from everything your body wants to do for hours. Or people have CNN going all the time on repeat. But somehow I knew what to do. And I'd heard about Charlottesville. And I thought, oh God, how awful. And then I found out, well, there's a community for racial justice meeting that happens in Santa Monica here once a month. White supremacists have started showing up. And a neighbor told me, so I'm organizing a bunch of us to go and support the meeting.
Right.
I didn't have the TV turned on to find that out. I didn't find that, like, people still communicate. And I think if you live in a way where I want to be in touch with nature, I want to be in touch with my heart, I want to do the right thing, things will somehow make themselves known to you.
Yeah, I learned about the dangers of artificial intelligence through my decision to become a vegan by getting involved in effective altruism, which is a group of people who are trying to use rational, logical thought to reduce suffering in the world. And part of that logical thought is, if we're going to reduce suffering in the world, then we need to think about our children, our children's children, our children's children's children, humanity in the future. What are we going to do today that's going to destroy the planet in the future? You know, right. And that's how I ended up getting involved in artificial intelligence, and the money that we earn through the Truth About Alcohol, through our training courses and stuff like that. 5% of that goes towards effective charities, and some of that goes towards raising mitigation around artificial intelligence. So whilst people are really pushing down the foot on the pedal on the growth of artificial intelligence and trying to reach that general human level intelligence, nobody is putting any time and effort into, okay, so what are we going to do when it's smarter than us?
Right.
So people like Elon Musk and effective altruists are starting to put more money into that to kind of level up the thing. But yeah, I never looked at that on telly, never found it on the internet. It was through conversations with like-minded or people, interesting people, having deep, interesting conversations about life and the world without, depressing the hell out of me.
Right. And there are people who are really called to be on the front line. And I used to be that. I would be on logging roads, blocking logging trucks from coming. And I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
I don't have that in me physically right now. So it's like, can I be kind to the homeless people who are 3 blocks from me? You know, can I make eye contact with somebody? And what does it take for me to be able to do that? That I don't have to shut down. So it takes me spending time alone and doing things that nourish me, so that when I'm with others, I feel like it naturally flows for me to be nourishing to others.
Yeah.
So, we have to find our own way.
You remind me of my wife. She's very much an activist. So, you know, I remember we were watching this movie once, and she was crying her eyes out for like an hour later. I couldn't stop her crying. I got to go to Afghanistan. I got to put my body on the front line. And back to artificial intelligence, we can take the Bill Burr view of things, which I learned last night, that if you create the almost perfect artificial intelligence woman, then the man will never want a real woman. And then if you create the perfect into artificial intelligent man, then the woman would never want a real man. Oh. And he said, we will just end up with all the hipsters in the world and there'll be no war. So that was Bill Burr's version of artificial intelligence.
Okay. I like the no war part.
Yeah. So back to Mexico then. So you're in Mexico. We're giving some advice to people. I just wanted to give one piece of advice on that, actually. So Debra gave the advice of figuring out what your life would look like if you moved to Mexico, and then try to start doing that now in your current life. Right? Got that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is okay. I come on here and say I worked on the railway for 20 years, and then I left the railway to help people quit alcohol. But in the middle of that, I decided to become a professional poker player, right? And people go, wow. And I travel all around the world, right? And everyone's like, wow, you're so brave. Yeah, but what I don't often tell people is the reason that I didn't want to quit was because I was scared of not being able to provide for my family. So I needed a backup plan, right? Mm-hmm. So before I quit my job, I had already secured a job should my decision to become a professional poker player backfire. So I had a backup plan. Mm-hmm. I also had I had about 18 months redundancy money and annual leave money to help me become a professional poker player, right? That is completely different than someone just saying, do you know what? I know I've got 4 kids and a wife to feed and a house in bills to pay, but I just listened to Lee and Debra on his podcast. Debra buggered off to Mexico and changed her life. And Lee chucked a 20-year career down, and I was helping people. And he's in LA helping people and going to Hollywood improv classes with Bill Burr. I'm just going to pack my job in.
Right.
No. Let's have a plan.
Yeah.
So again, part of this, looking at what your life would be like, and Debra's saying, what are you going to do in your spare time? Going to read a book? Well, read a book now. Another part of that could be, okay, do you need to do some groundwork here and preparation to be able to get there? Yeah, I do. I need some money behind me. Okay, so let's start a little fund of your getting away from your job fund. And you don't have to put too much effort or focus in. Set it up, let it run for the month. And then when you're in a position to be more financially secure, it will give you more confidence. That fear will diminish a little bit and you'll be able to take your leap. I just wanted to put that in there. I don't know if you want to comment on that at all.
No, I think that's really smart. We don't want everyone, kicking in their job. And I think it's amazing what any of us sees happen when we start to take the steps.
Oh, yeah.
Just little steps, because it's a step in the direction of caring for yourself, whatever it is. It's like, I'm going to put $10 a month in the bank. It feels like nothing, but it's like every time you do it and it grows, it's growing the love for yourself. It's growing a future you believe in. So those little steps matter so much.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost, momentum is really important. I wrote about it on my blog post. I don't think I posted it yet, but momentum is key.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you're quitting alcohol. So if you're quitting alcohol, using all the tools and the mantras that we have on the truth about alcoholism being an invisible, violent, dominant belief system, if you don't keep your foot on the pedal and keep that momentum going, it's very easy for the addiction to get hold of you again. It's like you just let them go, but if you slow down, it's just going to grab hold of you again, Yeah. And I'm talking not about life. I'm talking about quitting an addiction, right? Which is different. There are going to be some people who are like, hang on a minute, this is too much for me. It's actually making me want to drink. That happens. And when that happens, we need to take our foot off the gas. But there's a lot of people out there that just need to keep building that momentum to reinforce and kind of like counter brainwash ourselves, because we've been brainwashed most of our life about what we should think, what our values should be, how we should act, that we need to get married, have kids, have the perfect job, get the perfect house. We need to kind of take time to change those neural pathways or stories to create new ones. And it takes time, but we need that momentum. We need that momentum.
And it needs repetition. Those neural pathways don't become strong till they're repeated and repeated and repeated. And it's sort of like compound interest.
Yeah.
You know how that just grows? Like there's that example they say, would you rather have in the space of a month, would you like me to give you a penny and double it every day, or $1 million today? What would you pick?
Yeah.
And most people say, I'll take the $1 million. And that's kind of how we think, like, I want it now.
Yeah.
But if you take a penny and you double it every day for a month, it ends up being something like $10 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're taking a step of like not drinking today and not drinking tomorrow, or whatever it is, or I'm going to put $10 in the bank for my future fund, you know, in 2 months I have $20, big deal. But that whole idea of compound interest, whether it's health-wise, financially, relationship-wise, you look back over a couple of years and go, I'm not the same person. This is not the same life. But it's every step, every penny.
Yeah, it is. It's just getting on the forum, the Strive Community Forum, checking in today is a step.
Yeah.
Today I relapsed and had a drink of alcohol. Okay, that's a step, because we can learn from that, you know. Listening to this podcast is another step. So I love that. This is a good time to ask you a question, actually, from Ali on the Strive Community Forum. Ali says, I'll just paraphrase here. Ali would be interested to know how, after living alone, and then you move back to a community, you was able to hold on to and continue. Were you able to hold on to and continue living the same way? Were the subtle adaptations you had to make to your beliefs and your way of living? It seems a huge difference in surroundings. Or is it just the beliefs you build up over time that adapt themselves to wherever and whatever you want to do?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I wanted to talk about that and forgot. Thank you, Ali. So LA is very different from a little village in Mexico. You know, very different. I do live right at the beach, so that's nice. And okay, so let me answer the question. I lose track. I get caught up and I adopt the LA way. And I think I'm sensitive because I think I feel everybody's nervous system. When I first moved here, I thought, oh my God, everyone feels afraid and going for it. And a part of me thought, so I should be. But what I noticed is I actually wasn't ready to leave the town in Mexico when I left, but a man from California came down, we fell in love, and I married him. So I moved here to be with him, but I really felt like I hadn't learned all I was supposed to learn there. There was more deepening and evolving for me to do. So I was thinking, well, how do I bring Yalapa into me? And so it would be things like, I don't have a car. I walk everywhere, or I ride my bike.
Wow, not having a car in LA. That is impressive, Debra Joy.
Yeah. So it's making these choices. We also live in a tiny home. So we have a huge yard, an organic garden, a view of the ocean, but our house is 350 square feet. Part of that enables us, like you said, you work hard, I work hard. I don't work hard. I don't.
Right.
I work very, very, very little. I take very few clients. This is my first video podcast I've ever done. I don't work hard. I arrange my life around cooking some meals slowly and walking to the store and walking the beach. So I've made what was good about living in Mexico be part of my life here. Now, not everyone can do that. I don't have kids. If I had kids, it would be different, but I would make choices as best I could to keep that energy. I would probably drive if I had kids, but I would do things like, how do I give myself enough time while driving so I don't arrive rushed or stressed? And that's a lot of advice I'll give to clients like who are frantic. It's like, just give yourself more time. Arrive places early. You'll be amazed at what it does for your nervous system. You know, so different little things. I hope that answered it.
No, I like it. Me and Liza are always rushing around, or Liza's always rushing around. I'm going to blame my wife for that one. It always stresses me out. Eleni just says, doesn't really ask you a question, but she just wants to pass on. It was actually Eleni, who lives in Greece, who asked me to get you on the podcast.
Oh,
yeah, so there you are. There you are.
Thank you,
well, I'm sure Eleni would put you up. She is a huge fan. She says to tell you that she's a huge fan of your serenity mood And your active love message, your posts bring me peace every time I read them. What is the serenity mood and what is your active love message?
Neither of those are from me.
Right. Are you sure? Have we just kind of like blown it? It's like Eleni got a different Debra Joy.
Maybe this is all a big accident.
A perfect, brilliant accident, because you're just living down the road from me. So I'm gonna make sure we grab a cup of tea.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. Okay. So the serenity mood and active love message wasn't yours.
No, I have an event I do every June called the 30-Day Love Explosion. That's a free event people join, but I don't have those other two, but they sound lovely.
Okay, I will ask her.
Curious who that
I know. I will ask her about that and feedback to you. Just before we finish off, I just want to talk a little bit about divorce, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I know that this could be an entire podcast in itself, and if you have a hard cutoff point, just say, "Lee, I got to go," and we'll shut it down. But there is somebody on the podcast at the in the forum at the moment who is doing really well, not drinking alcohol, and is really filling his time with pursuing some health and sport and exercise goals that he's always wanted to do in his life to get himself in shape, but he's always been held back. And he's really going for it. But then his wife drops on him that she would like a divorce, and he's got twin daughters, and being through that position myself, I know that his relationship with his children will change dramatically. His time spent with them will change. There will be a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of confusion, in and around that. And when I went through this experience, my ex-wife, hate is the wrong word to use. She despised what I became. This sounds really strange because I turned my life around and became a force for good in my mind. And I guess a lot of people who listen to this regularly or on the Strive Community Forum would look at me as a beacon of light, a beacon of goodness. But my ex-wife doesn't look at me like that, because her value, her paradigm of how you raise children is very different to mine.
Right.
So she really disliked who I'd become. She said, "You used to be a great father, now you're the worst father in the world." I believe I'm the best father in the world, and I used to be a terrible father, right? Just to show the views that people have are not right or wrong, they're just very different.
Right.
But we don't have a relationship. And because we don't have a relationship, that crushed my kid. Because he was in the middle of two warring factions who talked through him to her. Now, I know you didn't have children, Debra, but I believe your breakup was nothing like mine. And it was more, as harrowing as it was, you have a good relationship with him? Okay, yeah. So let's give James some hope here. Let's just talk a little bit about how on earth did that happen? Because there must have been some work put into that to make it work, right? Or maybe not.
I don't know if my example is so helpful. Is it James?
Yeah.
To James, because we don't have kids. And I think that's really different. You can be more selfish, really. So I never stopped loving my ex-husband, and I still love him, and I wanted good for him. I just knew that who I was in that relationship wasn't good for me. It wasn't because of him. He was being himself, and I was being a certain way in relationship to him, and I didn't know how to be different with him. So I was the one who said, I didn't actually say I wanted a divorce. I wanted to separate and try to figure out my own shit. Like I thought, I don't like myself. I don't know what's going on. I know I love this man. Why am I not happy with him? So it was in separating, I realized, I'm kind of peaceful on my own. Like my whole system settled, and I realized I started to be more genuinely happy. So I was sick when I was with my husband. So it wasn't like I got sick after. Like he was very supportive during that time. He didn't see me be sick from the time we were dating in our 20s.
Right.
So he was very supportive all along. So I still had that sickness. But for anyone to say I want a divorce, there's generally a lot of pain, expressed or unexpressed, that leads up to that moment. And I think if you can hold, not necessarily what was good memory wise, but just love for that person. There was some reason you married that person. There's something about them that probably is still there you love. I always held that. My ex tends to isolate himself, so I phoned friends and said, still, please reach out, like call him, be his friend. And he didn't want anything to do with me for years, really. I would send him birthday cards. It just, what I could. I wanted good for him. And then when he was ready, we reconnected, and he phones me for dating advice.
Right.
And we see each other, and there's warmth, and there's friendship, and there's love there. Not that we'd be good together. We wouldn't marry again. He's on his own life, and there's love. With James, I think it's really important that he actually really stick with all that's working for him. All the health, the careful stuff he's doing, and to keep loving his children. I think you said he has a couple.
Yeah.
And to keep as much as he can, to keep that the same. That things don't change for the kids and that they don't feel torn. I think the worst thing is when kids have to feel they have to choose between their parents, or they have to settle arguments for their parents. Like, if they can just be as loved as they were, and things can stay as normal as possible. But James finding a community that loves him and supports him, and really supports him being healthy and doing the things that are working for him, is probably the best gift he can give his kids.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it with my child. I always think to myself, the only person who is qualified to comment on my parenting skills is my child.
Right.
And his views his views will change as he gets older. So right now he thinks that I'm the greatest dad in the world, and I always have been. Now, when he's 30, 40, sat on the psychiatrist shrink's chair, he might change his mind. But right now, that's what he thinks. And I'll go by that. And I always remind his mum of that,
Yeah.
But I also say to my son, what are the things that I could have done differently?
Oh, nice.
And he said to me, I wish your mum would have continued some sort of amicable relationship. So that was really powerful coming from a child.
Yeah.
Because it shows how much that hurts him. Okay, I know my parents are not going to be together because they shouldn't be together, and I understand that. But I love these two people more than anyone else in the world, and to see them fighting kills me. The other thing he said to me, which I find this really difficult, is he said, I wish you wouldn't have been so preachy with me in the short times that we had together. Instead of trying to be a father in terms of teaching me how to be a man, I would have preferred you just played with me. That makes me cry makes me cry just thinking about that, because I recently spent a weekend with him before I come out here because of that advice, and we just had fun, and all of a sudden I just realized that he's the kid taking Instagram selfies of himself and dressing in all the clobber, and he drinking a little bit and experimenting, completely the opposite to who I am now, but what I used to be when I was a kid. And trying to be a man. But then when we got together, he was just this lovely little kid. I have one question that come up for me that this is just a personal one for me, because this is something I really struggled with. You said that you still love your ex-husband. How was there any conflicting? Was there an internal conflict that arose because you met somebody else?
No. I don't really want to say anything about him. He's not on the podcast.
Yeah, no.
Things weren't good between us. We weren't really great to each other. We had stopped being really kind and thoughtful, and it's deeper than that. But who we were when we got together, and I think who we thought we'd be, maybe who I thought I would be, really changed. And maybe he maintained who he thought he would be. So we weren't growing together, sort of like, and that can be really scary in a relationship. So someone's trying to kind of pull you back. No, like, be this, right? I want you to come back. And I was trying to be both things, who I was in the world, and it wasn't working. And I couldn't figure it out. I just knew something was wrong in me, with this situation. I love him. I'm not happy. What's going on? So I thought distance would help me figure it out and come back fresh. And what I figured out was, I'm really happy alone.
but then you met somebody and fell in love.
I know. I was so done with relationships.
So that's the little bit that I was focusing on a little bit, because I'm pretty confident when I broke up, the last thing I wanted in my life was to meet anybody else. I always remember my friends saying to me, well, look on the bright side of life. You've been with Debbie for over 20 years. Now you can play the field. And I was like, that's the last thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
I literally was so heartbroken. I just didn't want to meet anybody. And then I go and fall head over heels in love. Just didn't plan it whatsoever. And that was the turning point in the relationship with my ex-wife.
In a good way.
No, in a bad way.
Ooh, in a bad way.
Everything was, when we split amicably, everything was okay. But then when I fell in love with somebody else and that was realized, then that was really, really difficult.
Right.
And I found it really difficult trying to keep every single camp happy, which made me very sad. I had to keep my son happy. I had to try to keep my ex-wife happy. I had to keep my new wife happy. And in the same time, I remember once headbutting the wall in my mum's house, and she had to stop me. She's like, what's the matter with you? I'm like, I cannot please all these people.
Right.
Somebody is going to get hurt. And right now I'm hurting all of them. And I'm hurting myself more than anything. And back then it was almost impossible for me to say to my wife that I love my ex-wife. It felt like I was committing treason.
Right.
I was just so confused. And I would listen to podcasts of people saying, yeah, I have my ex-wife knows my new wife and they get on really well. And I was like, I used to think, why is my life not like that? Because even though you split up, and I say this to James, because some people's advice is, oh yeah, well, she left you. Oh, well, don't get rid of her out of your contacts list. Don't ever see her again. Go out and play the field, go and meet somebody else, screw that woman, And I'm like, seriously? He loves her. Like, there's a lot of feeling there and a lot of history. And he's going to be really sad for a very long time that she's no longer in bed with him when he rolls over in the morning. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And I never felt that it was okay for me to love more than one person at the same time.
Right.
I didn't think the rules of life allowed me to do that. So I had to be secretive. I had to not be truthful, not lie, but hide my behaviors, which then leads to a lack of trust.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's like, why are you not telling me that you've just sent a text message to your ex-wife? Why aren't you telling me that you're in connection with her? And it's like, yeah, why aren't I?
Right. And we have these internal systems, right? Like you feel this guilt or this weirdness, and it's like your internal system going, hello, something's not right here. And I think when you were trying to please everyone, and my God, I know that feeling. I've been such a people pleaser and still try at times. I'm far less successful now, thank God. There's something you're imagining you'll get from that. Like if everyone's happy then I'll feel good or whatever it is for you. So I really try to live by, I'm going to be selfish. So it comes back to, again, like when you thought you were going to quit your job, what you'd get, if I make everyone happy, then what? Then I'll feel peaceful or I'll feel okay. Well, instead of trying it that way, what would it take for me to feel peaceful and okay right now? And what if I take care of myself first? And even though it's a cliche, it's that airplane message, right? Put your oxygen mask on first.
Yeah, before the child's.
Right. And nothing is going to direct you to do that. When the plane's going down, you're going to be like, get it on my kid, right? And if you have trouble getting it on your kid and you pass out, you've just messed up your kid's chances. So get it on you and then take care of your kid. And I think we're actually at our core all quite selfish. So even you pleasing everyone around you, there was a selfish reason for that. You believed it would make you feel better. You believed you'd feel okay. You believed you'd be a good guy if you did that. So since we're doing everything for selfish reasons anyway, let's be more direct. I want to feel good about myself. What will that take? And so back to James. If James is taking care of himself and he feels good about himself, his natural goodness towards his wife and kid are going to come out more easily than if he's trying to be the good husband and trying to be the good dad. And those are roles we put on ourselves, very much determined by someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. Last question, and then I will let you go, I promise.
Alrighty.
Mourning. Not the morning, but
Okay.
grief.
Yeah.
So people often say to me, it still feels like you have like unresolved issues. It still feels like you haven't mourned the loss of this previous relationship, et cetera, et cetera. And there's part of that that speaks to me, but I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand mourning, I guess. What am I supposed to like stand by this virtual graveyard of 20 plus years of life and cry? I don't understand what it looks like, but when people are telling me that I haven't dealt with it, it does speak to me. But I'm just curious how you mourned, or whether that word, that practice was even relevant.
Yeah, it wasn't so much a practice for me, even though I was the one who said I wanted a divorce. And when I got my own place, I was so much more peaceful. I cried for months. And I went through this crazy thing of like within a block, I could be happy and relieved and sobbing and hysterical. And yeah, it was a wild ride. And my mom sometimes would be on the phone with me, talking me through the night. And the next morning she was so kind because I was beside myself. To the point where she knew it wasn't good. And she'd say, you can go back. If you've made a mistake, you can go back. And she was really kind. But I'm interested when people say you have something unresolved and it speaks to you, how so? Like, what do you feel when they say that? Or what do you think?
I guess I think that I guess I feel like I'm not allowed to still love her. And I have to prove to my wife that I'm over her, because only then, when you're over someone in our rules of the life, can we then be truly give ourselves to somebody else. But I don't believe in that. I believe that I believe that we have this bucket of love and we can divide it between people. Yeah. And one of the things that I will criticize my ex for regularly is that she has this cup of love and it's all directed to my son. And that is not healthy. But equally, I think that I should be allowed to just be at peace with that. And I'm not. And so that's what some work I need to do, I guess, is I think, I don't know. I guess because I don't even know what love is a lot of the times. As a young man growing up, love was very stereotypically aligned with sex and physicality. So to love someone means that there was something sexual or more intimate. And it was very different to loving your sister if you loved somebody who wasn't a sibling or a parent. So I feel my software, my foundational wiring, my values and stuff says I'm not allowed to love somebody else, because if I do, that means that I find them physically attractive, blah, 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 blah. But the truth is, I'm not physically attractive to my ex-wife. Yeah. I don't want to ever be with my ex-wife. The thought of being with my ex-wife in a relationship, it's just, it would never happen in a million years, and I would never want it to, because I adore and love my wife that I have now.
Right.
But I still don't want to see her hurt. I still want to see her do well in life. I want her to fall in love with a wonderful man. I want my son to take care of her, in his role of being a good, dutiful young lad. And I guess I don't feel like I can do that, but that's my own doing.
And do you think you can't do it because you actually have had these open conversations with your wife and she said she feels like you're disloyal for wanting the best for your ex?
No,
So
there's stories that I've created. Yeah.
Okay. So that might be the thing for you, is just starting to really embrace and find ways to express what's true for you. You don't want to be with your ex-wife. You're not attracted to her, but there's a love there. There's a desire for her to be happy and be well and do well. She's the mother of your kid. I can't speak for your wife, but for me, I think, well, if we ever separated, I'd want you to want the best for me.
That is a really good point.
You know, like I'd want to know that I'm still thought of well and there's kindness there. And even if I have a close friend who grew up, her parents split up and made it really important that she choose sides. So brutal on a kid. And what it's meant for her is that you always have to be loyal to her, right? So to be friends, you have to be loyal. Whatever she's going with, you have to go along with it. So I don't work that way. And so we're really close friends, but I had to have conversations about, that's not the way I love. My love may not look like loyalty to you, and that could be the end of our friendship. I love you. I want nothing but the best for you. I want to be by your side. I adore you. And it won't look like that. And it was really tough. You know, we've had lots of conversations back and forth, but we got closer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's had to accept that I will love people she doesn't love.
I have some conversations. I have some deep, meaningful conversations to have. The other thing that I wanted to say to James and anybody else who's going through a divorce, in my experience, not just my own personal experience, but experience with other people who've gone through divorces, and it's not extensive. I ain't no marriage counselor or anything like that. But unless you've splitting up because someone's cheated or someone's done something to really, really hurt you, if you've gone through an amicable split because it's just the relationship has just reached that point where the disconnection has just become too great and there's not a willingness to try to put that back together again. And let's be honest, it is bloody hard being with someone for 50, 60 bloody years. And we're getting older and older, so God knows what it's going to be like when we've got a childhood sweetheart and we're living until we're 150.
Right.
But in that instance, when you divorce, everybody acts in their own kind of like self-protective little shell-like way. And sometimes it could come across that they don't care for you. They're cold, that they are taking this all too easy, and that they really are showing you that there's no feeling there. Yes. And I can tell you, being on the end of a divorce, and Debra can tell you, being someone who said, I wanted, not a divorce, but wanted separation, that it hurts, and we cry all night, and we cry all night regularly, even though we might not cry our eyes out when we're in front of the person that we're separating from. Everybody gets hurt through this. So I think, and that surely must help, is to think, why is my former partner behaving this way? And it's generally because they're really hurt.
Yeah, they're hurt, they're scared, you know, they're protective, like you said.
Debra, taking up so much of your time. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I want to just say a little bit of gratitude and just say how wonderfully inspirational it is to see you switch from such contrasting lifestyles and then to use those experiences and pour them back into the world through your practice as a life coach, okay, and a health expert. I love that. And you're sharing your continued struggles with your celiac disease and other health issues, rather than just blocking yourself away on your tiny little island and just loving life. So I really appreciate that. And this will be a really good podcast for people to listen to. Be very inspiring. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Lee. I hope it was a good mistake.
Yes. Yeah, it could be the greatest mistake. And I will be in touch for a cup of tea. Thank you.
Yeah, great. That'll be fun. Okay. Thanks a lot for your time.